All right. Here we are. We're going live, baby. Let me put this out for the group. That out of my face a little bit. Where is the group promo? Here we go. And cool. We've got managing moderators on this now. That's pretty sweet. Don't need them at this moment, but yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, let's go ahead and get a little banner going. Since it's the last day of the sale, we'll go ahead and put that up there. And that's kind of interesting. Okay, let's go ahead and grab a question and we'll go ahead and get started. For those of you out there that'll be coming in, don't forget, today is the last day of the Black Friday sale. So 25% off absolutely every product at Sir Links a Lot will be ending today. And unfortunately, if you don't make the sale, it's over until next year. And it is the biggest sale of the year. We're not going to be running any 25% off again until next year. So just be aware of that. Let's start off with don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the show, if you find anything useful. I've got a few questions set up here, but don't forget to bring your own if you are tuning in. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so this was a question that was brought up to us in our group on Facebook, the SEO Roundtable, which if you're not a member of, you should definitely get in there. It's where we're most active. We're talking every day, discussing whatever might come to like. So, good day, everyone. I'm wondering, how often should I update my content if I want to improve my SEO? Any advice would really help. Okay, so yeah, that's a great question because a lot of people want to think about this methodically, based on, hey, for the algo, how often should I be updating things? And the fact of the matter is, you can't go wrong updating, with gradual little tidbits whenever it's useful or important that you do so, right? You can always bring something new to the conversation. Maybe some things shifted or changed and pages need updating. This is going to be a little different from like an e-commerce site to a local site, right? But if as often as you need is going to be beneficial to you. Now, times where I maybe would abstain from something like this, let's say you've got a big site, it would for a couple terms, or you had a couple posts that were ranking really well for some competitive terms, and then all of a sudden you find yourself, kicked out of there. One thing that a lot of people do is they knee jerk and they instantly think, well, all right, this content is bad, assuming they looked at all the other variables and then that's what they came to. So what then they do is they might delete that content and start from scratch all over. I would not advise doing that. I like gradual movements that then add up, right? Like this is about painting a narrative for the algorithms, right? And we're talking about LLMs as well. I don't give a shit if anybody else is talking about AEIEO. It doesn't matter. It's all SEO. I'm sticking to that. There's no need for new acronyms, right? So what you are doing for all these algorithms is you are painting a narrative. What it looks like to an algorithm, as far as like baking that in, is when you are updating a website all the time, you're adding little tidbits, etc. It looks like a live um, asset, right? That is thriving. You've got your content, it's continually being washed over while there's new content continually going up on that site, while it's aggregating new backlinks as well, right? And this paints a well-balanced narrative that looks like a live site, right? So that's what we're after whenever we're editing content. I think it's a good habit, even if you're position number one, to come in to those posts that are getting you a lot of traction. And, per what somebody said in the group, I think that's fine. 4 to 6 months. There's no exact science that I could tell you. I mean, there is an exact science to it, but it'd be based on more variables than just, hey, come in, make sure you're updating your content every 4 to 6 months, and that's going to really ensure that you're getting movement up in the SERPs. What it's going to do is, if you're coming in and every 4 to 6 months you're just adding a little bit, maybe you're deleting some stuff, it's going to refresh that content. It's going to get that algorithm to recrawl. And when it recrawls, it's going to say, okay, this site is being loved, cared for, etc. Right? So that is what's going to play into your content plan. So come in, make sure you're doing all things, right? It's not just about we let off backlinking, we let off new content. You are using this as one of many sets of variables to move up in the SERPs. So yeah, hope that helps. And if you guys are here in the show, don't forget to bring me your questions. I'll be just going off of random stuff I found, unless y'all have something. I'd much prefer answering some of your live questions here, but we'll do what we need to do. This question came in earlier today by a very active member in our group, Praveen Kumar, who is very active in our group. So if you've been in there for any amount of time, you'll know that he's a really popular guy. He's one of our mods. And yeah, so he said, what is the best way to audit 150 to 200 live blog posts? Manually, this is taking a lot of time. Audit includes the following: usual on-page stuff like your title, meta, H1, page structure, heading hierarchy, etc. Yeah, so for this, I said, Screaming Frog can typically handle a good amount of this. And that in conjunction with Ahrefs is basically going to take care of the vast majority of this stuff, right? Now, there are a few things. 1 second, sorry. There are a few things that, you're going to have to check manually, especially when you're talking about, there was more to this question. Let me find it for you. Sorry. Because it is rather important. Oh, no, sorry. It is in there, right? Topical relevance. Oh, no. See, it's not in there. Let me add that in. 1 second. Sorry about this. Oh, it's because it's cut off. All right. All right, sorry about that. So basically, what's missing from this that does need to be discussed is content depth on top of what he asked for, topical relevance, and internal linking, right? So one of the issues you're going to have where you're going to have to manually comb, as far as, I would venture to guess, is topical relevance. I don't think there's anything, unless there's like a new AI-based tool, that's going to be able to get you that information. But at the same time, I'm not sure what he wants to utilize this for. Personally, my guess would be for like what your backlink profile looks like. A lot of people like to monitor and keep that updated and make sure that like broken links are still active, etc. I'm not gonna lie, and this is probably because I own a backlink agency, but I don't really monitor a good amount of that stuff. Once it's set, I set it and I forget it. And yeah, links do drop, things do change, etc. But I'm continually adding more to my content and my backlinking plan. So the idea is to just stay on top of movement. But if I were to answer this question for them and you're somebody that like really likes to have that data in your back pocket, maybe, you need to be a little bit more structured as far as you don't have budget for that many new links, but you do, want to make sure you're maintaining, or maybe you've got a huge PBN or something like that you're trying to manage links off of or posts off of. There are reasons that you might do this. But Ahrefs and Screaming Frog are going to be your, in my opinion, best tools. Now, he did say he went in and he used Sitebulb, which I'm not familiar with, but it might be something, worth looking into if this is something that you're actively doing. But I think no matter what, whenever you're trying to develop a plan like this, you got to take into consideration that there's going to be a lot of variables that you're kind of missing as you are pulling this all together and trying to make sense of what you're, getting out of it. But yeah, Ahrefs, Screaming Frog, I think would be best bet for at least the vast majority of this stuff, right? Yeah, hope that helps. Let's see what we got next. And hey, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you come to the show, don't forget to join us on Facebook in the SEO Roundtable where we're answering questions, etc. And if you've got any questions for me, feel free to drop them in the chat. I don't care what they're about. I'm an open book. I will happily talk to you about them. Don't forget, it is the last day of our Black Friday sale, 25% off everything. The sale won't happen again until next year. It's the largest one that we run all year. All right. This is a fun one because it plays into a video that I've made a while back, but I feel like, whereas at that time, I was one of the few people saying, all right, we've been through this shit before. We'll go through it again. Now, cumulatively as a whole, the entire gray hat SEO niche is finally talking about it sensibly. So Artemis, who works with us, put this up, being kind of facetious, I would think, but I cannot be the only one saying the SEO is dead crowd from earlier this year suddenly preaching about how important SEO is for appearing in LLMs. And I'm not going to lie, it brings a joyful tear to my eye because, yeah, we've been through this a million times. SEO is dead. SEO is changing too rapidly. We're not going to be able to keep up with things. And it turns out that even for AI, SEO has stayed the same. What do you know? And again, I've talked about this a million times. Why? Well, if you get to the broad scope of things, what factors could go into ranking, right? Content, press to that content. And I've talked about this openly for a long period of time. Content, press to that content. If you can come up with a different functionality for the algorithm, or for any algorithm for that matter, then feel free to bring it to my attention. I'd be interested. And now, like, some people might go, well, what about voice communication, right? Like, some people said that actually Artemis again in our group posted a repost where somebody was saying Google's listening to your phone calls and they are using that in their algorithm. I don't know how true that is. I think that would be very illegal. But at the same time, I think we've all noticed that voice chat is being rendered to feed us ads, etc., to some degree or another. But again, I would just consider that press. It's people talking about your content. That's what it is. So, if you take those two values into account, it's still content, the quality of that content, how it resonates not only with the end user, but with the bots that are crawling it that are then serving you up in search in conjunction with press to that content, whether that's in the form of backlinks, which, Sir Links a lot knows, voice chat, mentions, any number of things, right? It's all going to come into play, and it's still all SEO. A group member, Jay Rafa, said something that I really liked, and I won't, take it from him. It's the accurate talking point, because very few get their hands dirty and do the actual work. They just read something, follow along, and back another's bullshit up. That's what it comes down to. He stresses, be very careful who you listen to in this industry. There's some very smart people that do well, but also a lot of bad ones, and they don't all have good intentions. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. There was a lot of people early on that got on the SEO is dead bandwagon, right? And it's clickbait bullshit. When will search ever be dead? And for the people that jumped onto that, especially the newer people, I get it, because when I was new to SEO, it was the same. There's always been fear mongering. There's always been a conceptualization of SEO's dead, or it's going to be dead soon, and anybody trying to do it is about to be out of a job. This can be taken into a lot of different industries, and it's absolute BS. The algorithms are man-made, right? What gets served up is based on information that, at least to a certain degree, is digestible, and SEO will never be dead so long as people are looking for something. It will change. We will have to adapt to things. I will say that even, the minute details of what we do from the beginning of this year to now have changed substantially. But again, still goes back to the core concept. What is important? What is going to get you ranking? Content, press to that content. And again, if you can come up with a different ideology, I'm talking about like from a philosophy standpoint, feel free to get in our group or message me. I'd love to discuss it, because this is what keeps me going. Whenever there's a huge shift, and I've been through a lot of them in the last 10 years that I've been in search, 10 plus years, I guess now, it's always been the same thing. Everything is going to die. We're all going to be out of a job. And then sure enough, if you keep your head down and you keep moving forward, you're going to do fine. Who doesn't do too well are those gurus that showed up saying that then 6 months later are back to being experts in SEO. Yeah. Anyhow, I love that question. I love savoring this moment because, yeah, SEO is still the same to a certain degree, right? At least at its foundation. And yeah. Got some comments. Great. Let me go ahead. Christopher has a question for me. Let's go ahead and throw that up. Do you anticipate listicle spam for local businesses getting clapped soon? Anything that's being used as a spam tactic will eventually get clapped. I can't tell you definitively when, but I know that I don't like to mess with extremely spammy tactics anymore. Now, that is because I've gotten my business to a point where I found my recipes that work for me. I'm not too terribly hungry for scraps, so to speak, because I've got the main portion of my business all settled in, right? So for me, I prefer longevity in mind because I don't like dealing with occurrences that happened to me early on where I was messing with really spammy tactics. And I, eventually, even though I'd come out cash flow positive, I'd get popped for it. And that's a whole different type of headache. It's not what I like. I like more stability based kind of movements, right? So, whatever you're building, you have to conceptualize what your broad scope business plan is. Do you like building new assets repeatedly? Because now what I've come to find is if you get clapped, getting back into favor is incredibly hard. We had somebody where we opened up discussion in SEO roundtable on Facebook recently where we were discussing this, getting clapped and being able to come back. And he didn't have any specifics on how to do it, but he said he knows some people that are really good at bringing dead sites back. And I said, I mean, if I'm taking a expired domain that got clapped previously, I can get that re-indexed and I can build it out into a new site. But that to me is just starting with a fresh asset. If I get brought like a client, for example, who got clapped recently, who is always using these kind of shortcuts and then coming to me and saying, "Hey, I need to get out of this hole." My recourse of action is typically going to be, "Hey, we can start prodding at things and seeing what comes out of it, but a lot of times it's just better to start fresh." And then I might take that old domain and 301 it through a filter like another domain to the main asset. Yeah. So, do I think these sites are going to get clapped soon? I don't have a definitive answer for you. You can play a loophole for as long as you can. And if a lot of people start discussing it and start, coming up with ways to abuse it, eventually it's going to get closed. Right. So, decide what's right for you. Do you want to go after the um, short movement, short based, I guess, vision for this? My guess would be no, because you are working with local businesses, right? Why would you want to possibly snipe somebody's business or like screw up somebody's business for, when it comes to their digital footprint? Because you were being hasty with their project. And even, which I've worked in too for the rank to rent people, um, even taking shortcuts there, like, there was a long period where I was using fake GMBs to rank locally for a lot of random rank to rent things. It's not something I care to do anymore. Once those loopholes, and like there are people that can still kind of do it, and some got away as far as from getting clapped even in my network, but I don't use any of it anymore. Once it happened, then I just move on to something that's a little bit more stable. And yeah, that would be my preference. I actually haven't messed with any of this listicle spam concept, and I don't really know anybody that else that it is right now, mainly because I don't work local too much anymore. But I'll tell you this: if it's a tactic that I could see getting sniped in like the next 6 months near future, then I probably wouldn't mess with it. But that's also just a basic preference. There's a lot of people that build entire campaigns on how much money they can get out of a project. Doesn't matter how long it runs. Like that's the scope of what they do. Like I've always admired, and this is different, but those black hat people that know how to rank for like UFC fights the night of, etc., and they take up entire SERPs, right? There's no longevity in that, but they know how to do it and successfully to earn money with their targets. So, you've got to come up with a game plan. An example I like to bring up is I've got a $0 to $10,000 a month case study that I put out on sirlinksalot.co under our case studies. And that thing ripped for about 2 years. I made really good money off it. It was in the outdoors niche. But I use spammy tactics that I speak about there, all of which I don't utilize anymore. If I do, I'm doing them to a much smaller degree with the idea that I'll keep longevity in mind here. So thanks for bringing your question. All right. Let's go with a redirect based question. If you redirected 3 domains to all consolidate and point to just one domain, how long do you think it would take for Google to remove all old URLs, pages, and only show the new main one in SERPs? Yeah, that's a great question. It comes up a lot because specifically newer people, they're going to come up and they're going to go, "Hey, man, I 301 this domain like 2 months ago. And whenever I search, the old URL is still popping up. The old top level domain is still popping up in search. What can I do to fix this?" Well, long story short, you're just at the mercy of these crawlers and these search engines, right? So it's up to them when the reindexation comes. But there are some factors you could mess with to kind of like help influence this, right? One is going to be continually working on that new site, pushing content. And then, of course, the most potent of all the factors is building a backlink narrative to that new asset that you're trying to rank, that you've 301 to all these other domains to. What that's going to do is it's going to show that this new live site is getting all the attention, right? And there's ways to build a narrative around this attention that I think really speaks to the algorithm. One thing I like to do is automatically start with a press release. I'll start out with a press release. Company A, or in this point, it'd be company A, B, and C, were bought out by this company. And now they're this conglomerate, blah, blah, blah. You build the entire narrative around syndicating this narrative through a bunch of high authority websites. We're talking about news stations, etc. That's going to act not to really rank this new website, but to get it a large amount of press from a large pool of trusted sites. And it builds a new foundational based link campaign to this asset, right? Company A took over company A, B, C. And then through that, you use this blast of what are essentially foundational links to then bring in the big guns, which would be higher authority sites, one-off contextual placements using niche edits, guest posts, things of that nature, right? This has the foundational link building system attached to it, where you're building a narrative that's syndicating, and then there's all this smaller press, smaller blogs, identifying with what's going on, explaining it in their own ways, which is what happens during news cycles. You've got the initial press, and then you've got all these other blogs, all these social networks discussing what actually happened. This is going to help you get a leg up by building the authority of the news site quickly, while identifying the fact that it is the new main asset. And so that'll help, but it's also just what you're supposed to be doing. I know a lot of people historically liked to try and get away with just 301ing a domain or a few domains, and they consider that their backlinking plan. That's not a backlinking plan. Or it's part of a backlinking plan, but it's basically like you're starting off, and now it's time to keep that cycle going. Somebody else a while back asked, hey, when do you stop linking to your money sites? Never. I never stop. It's all baked into my marketing budget for that particular asset website on any given month. We've got this much for content, this much for backlinks. Maybe that increases, decreases here and there, but I'm keeping this network looking alive the entire time. That's going to give me more longevity in the SERPs and allow me to keep attacking. What we've seen specifically this year is that SERPs and then LLMs alike, everything is about authority right now. The old sniper site kind of mentality, like, might still be working a bit with, parasitic SEO, things of that nature. But if you're building your own website ground up and you're trying to get it ranked, authority plays a whole lot now. So make sure you've got a big site, right? What you're working on as far as your content plan goes. And when I say big site, I mean, like, that's niche specific too. So, if sites in your niche are like, 15, 20 pages on average, and they're ranking for everything, then you want to be around that, or maybe a little bit more, right? But yeah, how long, going back to this question, how long is it going to take? It's up to Google, but there are ways to make your site look really alive that are going to help with that narrative. And honestly, if you're doing that, this question becomes an afterthought, because you're really just building out that new website for what it's supposed to do, which is bring you income, right? So hope that helps. Again, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. 25% off. This is the last day of the sale over at Sir Links a Lot. And yeah, join us in SEO Roundtable if you're not already in there. All right. Okay, another question. What SEO tasks have you successfully automated recently using AI or MCP with AI integration setups that genuinely save you time without hurting quality? I'm gonna have to think about this for a quick second because I feel like compared to a lot of SEOs, specifically in the last couple of years, right? I've been less likely to automate my SEO through AI. I felt like early on, I'm always a late adopter. I'm not gonna lie. I stick to my recipes that I know work, and usually they've got broad scope to them, so they'll keep working even if I've got to fine tune some stuff later on. So when I saw like a bunch of people coming in, they're automatically playing with programmatic content, um etc. It became something that I wasn't too interested in. However, over the last year I have integrated my own system, right? So like we built in-house systems by which essentially we've created our own LLM that can digest data, then bring something new to the table whenever creating content is what we're trying to do. And then we can spit that out, automatically syndicate it to some websites in our networks. I don't openly use this across like client sites and networks like Sir Links a lot, where I'd want, I wouldn't want to put it in a position of even like kind of getting slapped, right? So it's to a minimum, and I can't say that it's like experimental because it's more than that, but I'm still pretty hesitant to it. And then if you go to kpi.me, something else we've structured over there would be how you digest analytics. And we've created specifically for LLMs our own crawlers that go out, digest information based on queries that might get used in LLMs based on what we'd want to see your brand for. And then that, brings you that analytic data up, how many times you got mentioned by what LLMs, etc. So from an analytics standpoint, that can be used pretty well. But we've got that automated through kpi.me. Something else, I don't know if I'd really consider it AI, but like, you can edit. If I'm really quick to move in, I might, well, I guess one thing is like, since I'm kind of the face of a lot of this, I'll use it for posts here and there. But I feel like you still have to bring your own personal authenticity into it in order for it to get actual reach. Um, if I take this question and I think about automating too much, it does hurt quality. Even from like a philosophical standpoint of like, I can see now how many posts go up that are just pure AI slop, video, text, you name it. And I feel like it takes away from the goal set that business or company would initially have, because humans, while we, like convenience, we're drawn to authenticity as well. And I think that'll make you more potent as a business, to be more authentic. So, if you are going to use AI to automate parts of your business, then I would keep it to majority of it you're digesting the information that it gives you, and then you're taking an analytical approach to what you're doing with that information versus making it completely programmatic. Yeah, outside of that, I'm like, I definitely use human equity still more than AI, at least at this point in time. So yeah, not very much here. However, there are some people that focus on programmatic SEO heavily with the use of AI in our group SEO Roundtable on Facebook. I recommend popping in there and asking questions about this. Some of them might be happy to help with some of these ideas. For me, again, I'm slow to move on new hot ticket items until I see that they've been vetted and they're working with, again, longevity in mind. That's just my preference on building. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Bring some questions if you got them. I'd be happy to help. Otherwise, I'll probably be just running a short one today. There's been people coming in and out, but yeah, kind of a slow day. All right. So this one's kind of fun. The end got cut off here. So can someone explain why SEM Russia's CMO just dumped over $2.3 million in stock? I was literally just scrolling through filings and boom, Andrew Warden puts in paperwork to unload 196,116 shares of SEM Rush. You know, this is something that's interesting to me because I love trading. It's, a second job to me. And I think if you're not really into that, then you might not understand this narrative. It looks kind of bad. But for those of you that don't know, SEM Rush got bought out by Adobe recently for an exorbitant amount of money. And I can see why the CMO would dump shares. When a new company takes over another company, it's essentially like hype, right? A lot of uncertainty is going to be surrounding this. A lot of variables that, who knows what's going to happen? Will leadership be affected? What is the pricing structure going to look like? It can cause a lot of volatility, specifically with the stock itself, right? So a CMO who gets in there sees, hey, I could use this 2 million right now and some change to buy a house to just reset up, and then I can probably come in and I can buy the floor out whenever the hype has died out. To me, it seems sensible. Now, this is just the CMO dumping some shares. If I saw everybody dumping some shares, it might be, time to kind of consider, well, what else could be going on here, right? Like maybe that volatility is caused by something that some insiders might know some information about. But seeing a CMO dump 2 million in stock right when all this hype is going on, it makes sense to me. And I don't see it necessarily as a negative. Probably something worth watching, right? What the rest of the brass is going to do over time, what Adobe is going to do with this new plan. And maybe there's some worthwhile stuff. But also, I don't know what the CMO is doing beforehand, right? And how many millions he had sitting in the bank. So a lot of times, and I can tell you this, what's that famous quote? If you don't learn to protect or care for your money, it's going to find another home, specifically when we're talking about market discussions, etc. Well, maybe this was the payday. You think about 2 million. Let's say that CMO has been working there for X amount of years. This adds a lot to their bottom line. Then why wouldn't they do it? At this point, who knows what's going to happen with this Adobe takeover? Who knows what's going to come from SEM Rush? I hope it's, a solid movement forward and they start competing a little bit better with Ahrefs now that they're going to have a lot of money behind them, etc. But we'll see, because Adobe isn't necessarily everybody's favorite, especially when it comes to private pricing structures. So all we can do is check it out. But I don't know if that's something that I would worry about, really. Okay. That's about all the questions I've got. We're about 20 minutes, but I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. I've got some other stuff that needs doing today, so I'll linger for about, let's say, 30 seconds. And if anybody brings me another question, I will stick to it. But if you don't have any questions, then I'm going to call it right here. So about 30 seconds. Let's see if anything comes out. And that's it. All right. Calling the stream here. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for tuning in.